My God, I hate trucks.
Muling binuhay ng Department of Transportation ang planong pagtatayo ng cable car sa bansa para maibsan ang mabigat na trapiko. Tinatapos na raw ang plano para rito, sabi ni Transport Secretary Arthur Tugade, at kung sakaling matuloy, magiging katulad ng presyo sa jeep o MRT ang pamasahe rito.
Thousands of firms are in hot water for allegedly engaging in illegal labor contracting. And the labor chief himself reveals to CNN Philippines some of these companies. More from our correspondent Rex Remitio.
A telecommunications giant, a leading multinational fast food chain, and a pharmaceutical firm with thousands of branches. These are on the list of more than 3,000 firms found involved in illegal contracting. Their fate is now in the hands of President Rodrigo Duterte, who received the list submitted by the Labor Department. Hundreds of thousands of workers rely on these companies for their daily survival. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello tells CNN Philippines most of these firms are in the manufacturing, retail, hotel, and food sectors.
Like for example, yung Jollibee, yung Budget, yung PLDT, yung mga hotels like Dusit Tani ba yun? O yung, if I'm not mistaken, Sofitel is also one of the non-compliant hotels. Meron din yung mga generic pharmacy. Nandiyan din yung Toll Philippines. Toll Philippines is also included.
Bello says these firms were found to be engaged or suspected to be engaged in labor-only contracting or other illegal contracting or subcontracting schemes that violate employees' right to security of tenure. He says this was based on reports submitted by dollar regional offices. Notices of violation were already served.
Yung aming submission is already a validated report. Hindi kami magsasubmit sa Presidente ng report na hindi namin na-validate.
Last month, President Duterte issued a memorandum directing Bello to submit a list of companies involved in illegal contractualization. The president reiterated his promise to go after these companies when he signed Executive Order 51, which is a reinforcement of Department Order 174 issued by DOLE last year. The department order imposes stricter regulations on labor contracting schemes, although it still allows some forms of contractual work. So what should the companies do to get off the hook? Bello says they just have to regularize their workers within 30 days. If not, these firms will face heavy fines, although they could contest the order before the court. DOLE will also issue an order automatically regularizing these workers.
We give them enough time to comply naman. We are also conscious of the challenges of the business. Kaya ang importante is they're willing to comply. And that to us is already a good development on the issue.
Since DOLE has only 600 inspectors, they were able to inspect only 24,000 of the 900,000 firms nationwide. That's why Bello admits the uphill battle against illegal contracting still has a long way to go. Rex Remitio, CNN Philippines.
One of the companies on the list, telecommunications giant PLDT, in a statement says it received the decision of the Labor Secretary on April 30th. PLDT says it filed a petition for review before the Court of Appeals on May 2. The company says, quote, certain aspects of the decision were inconsistent with applicable law, jurisprudence, and the documentary and testimonial evidence presented to the DOLE or the Labor Secretary, unquote. CNN Philippines is still reaching out to the other companies mentioned by Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello. In the meantime, Senator Grace Poe is supporting calls to suspend excise taxes on fuel in the tax reform program. Poe, who is the committee chair on public services, calls on the Finance Department to evaluate the suspension. She explains this is to cushion the impact of the excise tax on the public. But the Finance Department says it can only suspend the next increase if certain conditions are met. Calls for the fuel excise tax suspension picked up amid rising oil prices. Will the upward trend on fuel prices continue? And should we be alarmed over the weakening peso against the dollar? Our business analyst Mike Alimurong gives us the lowdown on what to expect.
We may not see prices going down soon because of a number of factors. For one, tensions remain in the Middle East among countries such as Syria, Iran, and Israel. And since we import most of our oil requirements from that region, we're affected. Another development is the move of oil producers like the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, and Russia to reduce output to address an oversupply. And by doing so, maintain relatively high oil prices. There's also the impact of high fuel excise taxes from the train law. So when put all together, high demand and the impact of train result in high pump prices that will remain in the foreseeable future.
The peso continues to weaken against the dollar. Should we be alarmed?
Well, no need to panic just yet. Even as the peso has touched a fresh low again today at 52 pesos and 70 centavos to the dollar. For one, the Banco Central just raised interest rates 2 weeks ago to curb inflation, but also to attract foreign investors to the country. When the country becomes more attractive to investors, there will be a greater demand for the peso. At this time, investment in the Philippines stock market is still highly dependent on foreign investments. Not surprisingly, many analysts predict the peso to weaken further against the dollar in the coming year.
We asked, how are you coping with the rising cost of goods and services? And it seems a lot of netizens are rolling with the punches. Facebook user P. Don Lagrada chooses not to whine, but to find ways to cut costs. Some of his tips: take the bus instead of driving, plant vegetables instead of buying them, and don't travel if you don't have to. Lord Kurt Dantes keeps his answer simple. He says smart spending, healthy living, additional take-home pay is greater than household expenses. Rolly Nunez sees this as a chance to lose weight, saying diet, honestly, diet. Meantime, Dolino Peterson lists down some advantages to the higher prices of goods. Among them is a dip in the number of smokers, drinking sessions, and car buyers. He adds it's good for the health because you'll get additional exercise and cut down on vices. Peterson also says it's okay as long as the government will use the collected taxes properly. Here now are some of the top stories from around the world. North Korea says its leader Kim Jong-un is still willing to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump anytime. That's after the U.S. leader canceled what would have been a historic summit. A top official at Pyongyang's foreign ministry says Mr. Trump's decision is not consistent with the desire of humankind for peace and stability in the world. President Trump canceled the summit Thursday in a letter addressed to Kim. He cited recent hostile comments from top North Korean officials and concern over Pyongyang's commitment to giving up its nuclear weapons. Alleged pork barrel scam mastermind Janet Lim Napoles is out of the Witness Protection Program, or WPP. Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara informed Napoles in a letter that the provisional protection granted to her under the WPP, which expires on May 26, would not be extended. In February, former Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre granted Napoles provisional protection for 90 days after she cited threats to her safety. Napoles also asked to be transferred from detention in Camp Bagong Diwa to a secure housing facility where the public has limited access. But Guevara sees no reason to extend the protection coverage, saying there has been no further claim of threats to Napoles at Camp Bagong Diwa. CNN Philippines spoke with Napoles' lawyer Stephen David, who regrets the Justice Department's move.
Sayang hindi na malaman ng tao kung sino talaga yung mga involved sa na talagang yung ibang involved na malalaki na hindi na sayang, di ba? Kasi mahirap naman magsalita siya na may threat sa buhay niya doon sa loob. Nakakapanghinayang lang. Ang dami dapat na maimbestigahan pa, hindi makakatulong yun.
Asked if Napoles would refuse to talk without witness protection, David says his client is willing to testify as long as her security is guaranteed. Meantime, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says Malacanang supports the Justice Department's decision to take Napoles out of the WPP. Roque adds, quote, Lim Napoles is not least guilty, whose testimony is not indispensable, unquote. Meantime, Grab files an appeal to reimpose its 2 peso additional charge per minute of travel. In the petition filed May 22nd, Grab notes that transport regulators allowed new transport network companies to impose travel charges. Last month, Grab was ordered by the LTFRB to suspend the 2 peso per minute fee. PBA Party List Representative Jericho Nograles slammed the fee as illegal. He said the charge was imposed without the public's knowledge, but Grab maintains it has been transparent to its riders. Aside from the appeal to reimpose the additional charge, Grab also filed a petition for a fare increase.